and that snake goes all the way down to your sacrum and controls your kundalini. When the devil is in charge of your lower brain, or your lower brain is in charge of you, let's put it that way, because the devil is inside of you. We may create devilish things outside of us, but it originates from within us. So when the devil part of our brain, the reptilian brain, rules over us, it controls all our senses. And you know that the devil always carried a triton, right? A three-pronged pitchfork. What's really interesting is if you carry out Ganesha's trunk, you get the trigeminal nerve that comes out and goes into the teeth, the nose, and the eyes. Most of the senses, right? And then it also has a little branch up here that goes up over the third eye. When the devil is in charge of your brain, for the majority part, then it actually controls your senses. It cuts off the third eye, and you're stuck in this lower part of your brain. We are being asked to evolve to the next point where we move up into the limbic brain, which is also known as the bird brain, which is super interesting because Ra, the sun god, was depicted as a bird. And Ra, you see these little thalamuses in the center of the brain. If you look at the segmentation, they look like beetles, which is funny, interesting, that the beetle is very popularly focused on in Egypt. This part of the brain is the thalamus, and in astrology, it's the part of your brain that relates to the sun. And it's so awesome to me that the sun god Ra literally represents, and the sun god Ra has a bird head, represents your bird brain. And once you get inside there and you illuminate higher than the reptilian brain, this is when you start to really turn things on. I couldn't draw this bone really good, but this right here, you can see my little pointing, this is the sphenoid bone, which is in actuality is the Ark of the Covenant, and we're going to go over that in a second. It's literally the Ark of the Covenant. And the pituitary gland, which controls all your hormones, chemicals in the body, rest within the sphenoid bone. So this little structure here, the pituitary gland, is actually the tablets that the Ten Commandments, which are Ten Commandments are actually chemicals, rule over your body. So if somebody knows how to control these commandments and control what you project into your body, they can control you. There's so much more to go over here, but like the eye of Horus, the eye of Horus, yeah, I said that right. It's actually, I don't have it in this picture, you can see it as well, but the eye of Horus actually goes over the ventricles in the brain. And the ventricles are another cool part of the brain that are filled with spinal fluid. And it just goes on and on. It's amazing. Everything is within us. It's amazing. Okay, I'll go on. So the ark, and you know, you heard about electricity arcs of the covenant. And look at the first part of this word here, coven. Coven is where a group of people, typically it was always looked at as witches or warlocks or whatever, coven would get together and practice magical rites to control certain things, call on the elements, and control reality. And that's fine and dandy as long as you're part of the ones that are doing, you're a consenting part of those rituals and those acts. But if you're not a consenting part, then you are the controlled part, and we're going to get to that in a second. The Ark of the Covenant is a chest described in the book of Exodus, and the book of Exodus was all about leaving captivity. And this is what we're in the stage of doing right now. We're in the stage of escaping our reptilian brain and exodusing that part that controls us. You could call that even the Pharaoh, and moving up into the higher brain. We're at the crest of joining or moving into the next step of our evolution. We're on the cusp of that. So the book of Exodus, as in leaving captivity, that contains the tablets of stone, which we're going to look at in a second, which are the two-lobed pituitary gland on which the Ten Commandments, and the Ten Commandments are actually hormones, chemical directions to your body. So the Ten Commandments are also within the Ark of the Covenant. Aaron's rod, and Aaron's rod represents Kundalini, and it's the medical staff. In biblical terms, Moses threw the Aaron's rod down, and it became a snake. Snake is Kundalini, and the medical staff, where you see the snakes twisting and twining up the middle, and then you have the two wings on top. That actually represents the endocrine system, the chakra system, and the wings at the top are actually the corpus callosum that connect the left and right vein. In Moses, interesting thing about Moses is his name literally means to bring out of water. So Moses traveled to the top of the mountain, gathered the Ten Commandments, and brought them down to the physical world where they were worshiping the golden calf that has 4 legs, and the cow always represents the physical world. So if we use that in metaphysical terms, our water, our blood, goes up to the top of our mountain, which is the pituitary pineal gland area, gathers instructions, and brings it down to the rest of the body. It's amazing how those stories, to me, correlate to actually physical happenings within the body. There's also a jar of manna within the Ark of the Covenant, and manna was when Moses gathered the Israelites, and what's interesting about Israelites is Ra, remember the sun god, is Ra-lites. Ra is in the middle of Israelites. When Moses came and got the Israelites from the Pharaoh and they escaped, most of y'all know the story, they went through the Red Sea and the water closed, and then they were made to wander in the desert for 40 years. And while they were wandering through there, God provided them with food, and it was manna. Well, manna actually is referring to mushrooms, and mannitol is a substance in mushrooms that makes them medicinal. The more mannitol or mannitose within a mushroom, the more medicinal they are. Also, psychedelic mushrooms had manna in them too. And psychedelics actually blow your third eye way open. The only thing bad about psychedelics and drugs is it's uncontrollable. We are meant to open this and control this on our own. No outside help. In the beginning, maybe you play with that. That's up to you. But in the beginning, in the end, though, you want to be able to do it yourself and control that yourself. And then also within the Ark of the Covenant is the first Torah scroll. And I'm going to go over here shortly that the Torah relates to toroidal field. It's like a round field that surrounds us. Torah, as in a round, and dial. So the toroidal field is around us completely, like a donut field. And I'm always playing with words. And if you look at the toroidal, it's like round dial. And by getting in touch with our own toroidal field, we can dial in what we want to experience in the world and dial out what we don't.